Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing up Representative Barbara Lee's legislation to repeal the 2002 Iraq War AUMF. I appreciate Representative Lee's strong leadership on this issue. Last Congress, I, like so many on this committee, voted with a bipartisan majority of the House to repeal the 2002 AUMF. In this Congress, I am an original co-sponsor of this bipartisan legislation, and I am hopeful that it will pass out of committee today. Since coming to Congress, I've been very clear on this topic. Congress, we must take the steps to reassert congressional authority in decisions of war and peace. It's required by the Constitution, and it's fundamental to our ability to represent our constituents, particularly service members we represent. I've joined with members in my own party and members across the aisle and across the political spectrum to introduce legislation and make the case to the American people in interviews and in joint op-eds that there is not only an interest in Congress reclaiming our constitutional authorities, but we have a recognition that we must finally take steps to do so. Repealing the outdated, inactive 2002 AUMF is a first step. And we heard that clearly from the witnesses who testified at our hearing this week. They affirmed that repealing the 2002 AUMF is a priority, a principled first step, and importantly, a step that would not impact ongoing military and counterterrorism operations, which are authorized under the 2001 AUMF. But repealing the 2002 would prevent our country from entering into another potentially protracted engagement without Congress having a voice. And for too long, we have seen men and women fighting and dying under authorities voted on decades ago, a generation ago. And the American people, especially the American men and women in uniform, deserve to see us take a vote on these issues. Repealing the 2002 AUMF is not only a step that we need to take, but we must address the Congress's ongoing challenges with the 2001 AUMF. We must replace and update the 2001 AUMF in the future. It's an authorization that has been stretched beyond its original intent to contend with threats that were certainly not present at the time that it got a vote a generation ago. But addressing the 2001 AUMF is not the question before us today. Repealing the 2002 outdated and unused AUMF is. And for those who say we should keep old authorizations on the books just in case we need them, I'd remind them that that's not how it's supposed to work. If there's a new threat, then those decisions to initiate new actions should be deliberated and should involve Congress. And the president has authorities provided by the Constitution and by the War Powers Resolution, but no president should be able to reach for irrelevant authorities that are just left on the books to engage in military action. For those who are saying that we're moving too fast, I'd like to remind them that this bill is bipartisan and it's passed the House multiple times and it's severely overdue. And let's remember that the 2002 AUMF was enacted by Congress prior to the 2003 invasion of Iraq that toppled the government of Saddam Hussein, and U.S. military deployments for related purposes ended back in 2011. I would also like to speak not only in support of Representative Lee's bill, but in opposition to Mr. Perry's amendment that would tie the 2002 AUMF repeal to a replacement of the 2001. My colleague from Pennsylvania and I joined with our colleagues at the time, Justin Amash, Ken Buck, Jared Golden, Dean Phillips, and Chip Roy, in writing an op-ed on the 16th of January of 2020. And we wrote, "To start, it is time to have a serious debate and vote on the repeal of the 2002 AUMF, which authorized the use of force against Saddam Hussein's government in Iraq. This authorization has fully outlived its purpose given the death of Hussein, regime change, and the withdrawal of U.S. forces in 2011, regardless of how one views the merit of that withdrawal. The 2002 authorization, as well as the lingering 1991 authorization, should be removed from the books," we wrote, "lest either be used to justify further military engagement beyond what Congress intended." And we continued and noted separately, and I quote, "We must also foster an informed debate on a strategic alternative to the 2001 authorization." Yes, we need to keep working on reforms to other AUMFs. We have to repeal the 1957 and the 1991 AUMFs that are still on the books. But Mr. Perry's amendment would hamper our ability to take a first step by requiring that progress and the repeal of the 2002 be tied to our ability to address the 2001 AUMF all at once. Moving on Representative Lee's common sense bipartisan piece of legislation is a first step, and it's one that we should take. I look forward to taking this action today. And if Congress is actually ready to engage, ready to reassert ourselves in these hard conversations of decisions where for too long, certainly many of our predecessors have shirked those responsibilities, then we can move forward in the future with replacing the 2001. But today's vote is not about that. Today's vote is not about a particular president, a particular party, or an administration. It's about reasserting the role of Congress in decisions of war and peace. And I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to join me in voting to repeal the 2002 AUMF. And I look forward to future conversations about replacing the 2001 AUMF. Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentlelady's time has expired.